This program was created in part utilizing the Sound Collection Lab located in the History, Social Sciences, Philosophy Department on the campus of the University of Arkansas at Fort Smith. The views expressed herein do not necessarily reflect the views of the Department of History, Social Sciences, Philosophy, or its faculty, or the University of Arkansas at Fort Smith.
Hey, this truck like it's getting ready to move here. I couldn't see if it was him or not.
Oh, see, Mr.
If
Interstate.
we can get some information. Hey, can you stay with police real quick?
10-4, 10-12.
All right, welcome back to Bill Hollenbeck's Behind the Badge. Cut.
Try that again.
Yeah, let's try that again.
Oh, I this mistake was brought to you by
Well, by Bill
That's
Hollenbeck
right.
Behind the Badge. All right, welcome back. Thank you all so much for joining us with Bill Hollenbeck's Behind the Badge. We're, as usual, filming this podcast episode here at the University of Arkansas at Fort Smith at the Sound Collection Lab. So we're very excited to have a very special guest star. Daren Bobb is on board with us today. So everybody,
Oh, no,
let's
don't
give a
do it.
big,
Are you gonna
big
do it?
round of
I think
applause
it's
for
the other
Daren.
one.
It's the other one. There we go. Had to make
Well, that
sure
was
that we
quick.
stuck that in. Hey, it's a small crowd,
Oh,
isn't
okay,
it? Though?
yes, it is. Very small crowd.
keep it down back there.
That's right.
Also here, as usual, is my co-host, Kevin Jones, professor here at the University of
Hello,
Arkansas,
hello.
Fort Smith. So glad you're back. You decided to have I know you had a hard day, but you made
Yes.
it in time.
This is
So-
all worthwhile.
I'm so glad. I'm so glad. So, Daren, what we always do is kind of read a little bit of a bio about
Sure,
our guest.
sure.
So,
In
going to
the
go back
beginning.
in the beginning.
Way
the Lord
long
created
time ago, yes.
Daren Bobb.
He started out as a child.
Daren Bobb began his career in broadcasting in 1984, working as a general assignments reporter for KTCS Radio in Fort Smith, Arkansas. And in 1991, he joined the team at KFSM as an assignments manager and executive producer.
Mhm.
In 2000, I think you went back to the radio, co-hosting a morning talk show on KWHN in Fort Smith. Also in 2006, then you came back to KFSM as the main evening anchor, and you've been there ever since. So I believe you've been doing this for over 40 years now. Is that-
41 years.
Wow,
Congratulations.
41
Thank you,
years.
yeah.
That's amazing
That's,
to be in.
it's either that or I'm just too silly to go anywhere
There you
else.
go. Or it could be just a little bit of both.
Yeah.
Also, you've been married to your wife, Christine. Lovely Christine.
40 years this past
Wow,
August.
that
Yeah.
is so
Congratulations.
I think you're right there with us.
I'm
Or
close to
close
it,
to
close
it,
to
yes.
just a little bit behind you. I
That's
can
right.
honestly say. So now you're living up in Northwest Arkansas in
Yep.
Town, and obviously you have two awesome children and grandkids now.
One
So-
grandchild.
All right.
Yes, yes.
So
great.
Allison and her husband Nathan, they're living near Little Rock.
In
is that correct?
Conway, yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
good deal. And then Andy, and they have a son named Andy.
Right.
Okay.
He just turned 4.
4 years. I'll
Yeah.
bet you're running around
Oh,
chasing
man,
him a
I'm
lot.
telling
What
you.
fun
he
is that?
He knows everything,
Awesome.
too. Yeah.
And Jake now is up in Denver.
He
I
is a
understand.
restaurant manager in Denver.
Okay,
Yes.
cool. And you're an active member there at St. Joseph in
Yep.
Tawny Town.
Yeah.
Fellow Catholic.
That's
This is
right.
kind of a Catholic table going on right now, so we're proud of that. You're also the past president of the Community Service Clearinghouse. You were on the board there in Fort Smith. He's past president of the Fort Smith Noon Exchange Club. I remember that. I
Oh,
was there
yeah,
a
yeah.
couple times actually speaking. And then also, are you still on the board for the Hamilton House?
No, got off that.
Okay.
I rotated off of that about 2 or 3 years ago. Yeah.
Sure. Well,
Yeah.
good. So constantly, one thing that I really admired about you is not only are you, the face of 5 News, but you have always been active in your community, in your church. And for me, back in my previous career, that's kind of what kind of keeps you grounded.
Oh,
know?
yeah.
It really, really is. You have to get away from what you work and what you see and what you report on, I would imagine, on a
Right.
day-to-day basis and get grounded with normal people.
And well, that's exactly why, with this job, and I learned from an early age of doing this that, there are going to be good days, there are going to be bad days. You're going to cover things that you wish you would never have to cover. There are things that you really do enjoy cover, but you don't take it home with you. That's the big thing. And then aside from that, so it's not just an everyday thing, that you try to do other activities like the Exchange Club, like the Hamilton House. I was on the United Way board for, for 5 years, and it's those things that take you away from work, where it's not every day you're getting up, getting in the shower, going to work, doing your thing, coming home, going to bed, getting up, and just every day. So when you have activities like that, especially when we were members at St. Boniface, we would do all kinds of things.
Such fun.
Just to get away from the mundane of, not mundane, but the day-to-day of doing this job.
And I would imagine reporting some of these stories. You might report a story, for maybe 45 seconds or 2 minutes on the air, but the amount of effort that you put in behind the scenes to bring all this information is probably tremendous.
It does take a staff. We've and that was part of what I did in the 90s, was being the newsroom manager to organize all of that controlled chaos, so to speak. Getting reporters out on the street, getting photographers out doing what they're doing. And now I call them kids because they are. Now I watch those kids do what I did when I was that age. And of course, things have completely, changed. We have laptops now that we can take out and edit. We have cameras that are this big now, and and they can shoot 2 hours of video. When I was cutting my teeth in this, we had cameras this big, and you can only shoot 20 minutes of video. So
that was the battery.
That way, yeah. Well, then you had the light pack battery, and then you had to have and then you had the deck that you had to carry with you, and it was all of that's changed, but the concept of still gathering and doing both sides of each story, that has not changed, and nor should it change. Now, we can talk a lot about how things have changed as far as how things are presented on air by certain, different networks and so forth. But in my mind, an old school me is that concept of getting a story, doing it in a concise way, making it understandable, making it relatable, and getting both sides of the story. That to me is still something that has been happening at Channel 5 since the day I started there in 91.
And you know what, Kevin, I think that's probably why so many people trust Channel 5, and because of the face, obviously, not just Daren, but just the work they put behind the scenes to make sure. I know when I was sheriff, there would be some great stories we'd push out, and then there were some tough stories that we had to answer to.
Sure.
But they always got both sides of the story, and that's so important. And sometimes nationally, you might not see that sometimes.
Well, yeah. Nowadays, when I first started doing this, there wasn't social media, there wasn't the internet, there wasn't. I call him Joe Beer Can, who wants to be a reporter or a journalist by posting something on,
a podcast host.
Yeah, right.
Well, no, not so much that. Right now I can take this and I can go out and I can shoot a video and say anything I want and post it on some social media page, and someone out there will take it as gospel. And to me, that's what has led to where we are now, as far as the division with certain networks, the division with certain social media pages. I always try to, especially during elections, and it seems like politics has been the one that really has taken hold with the divisiveness here. I try to tell people, my kids, when they were growing up, my wife and I talk about it, you want to be an educated voter. When you go to the polls, you want to know what the issue is, who you are voting for. Now, when you get on this and you're reading, you don't really know if that's the case or not. And to me, that
So
kind of
true.
breaks my heart a little bit, in that. So if you want me to be an educated voter on different policies or different candidates, and I can get on here and it's nothing but this
Sensation. Yeah.
it's very hard sometimes.
Sound bites instead of the actual ballot.
Exactly. Yeah. I've always said, and I've said it a number of times on Facebook, especially with what happens in Congress, and
What happens in Congress?
Lately, nothing.
nothing. Yeah, the what the networks do now is, and what's interesting is everything in Congress now with the advent of C-SPAN, which C-SPAN's been around for a long time, but with the advent of that, everything is recorded in Congress now, and members of Congress and members of the Senate know that, and so instead of let's fix this, I'm going to stand here and see if I can make this best soundbite
This
that
is
a
my
TV
free
station or a
10-second
network.
commercial.
Exactly.
Yeah,
yes.
exactly.
Yeah.
And I have found myself watching the BBC to find out about national news here in the U.S.
Is that right?
Where I
Yeah.
can get a semi-unbiased opinion.
Sure, sure.
And I find myself flipping from Fox to CNN and trying to figure out, okay, what's the truth between these two stories, and it's hard to do that.
And what's
It really
happened
is.
to an extent, and I've seen this not a lot, but often enough to where someone who does flip through and watches a lot of, say, Fox or CNN or MSNBC, and then they watch us and wonder why we don't do it in that
way.
form. And we just can't.
'Cause it's not a talk show.
It's
the
that,
news.
and we're local, and I've always said we all have to live here. I go to Walmart, I go to baseball games, I go out to eat restaurants. I have to live here, so I can't present something that is incredibly biased because half of that restaurant or half of that store is going to be, and so we just can't. We just can't do a one-sided, and our management is very emphatic about that. That if there is an appearance, there's not a lot we can do about that. But knowing that I know and I'm comfortable enough that when a story airs, it's going to have both sides, and that's what I'm a stickler for that.
Good.
And I know our management is that way too.
Well, I'm glad to hear it as a viewer.
Absolutely.
I want to be able to watch something and find
Sure,
out what the truth
sure.
is. However it falls, just what the truth actually is so important.
And we've actually taken steps further. Our company, the company that owns us, Tegna, has right about the time COVID hit, and maybe a year after, they really came down with new edicts on what is the viewer value of this story. Are we putting it on just because it's sensational? Is it or we really now take a very hard look at either a piece of video or the story or whatever it is, and we really ask ourselves, what is the viewer benefit of running this video or doing this story? And so we sit around at a 1:30 meeting or afternoon editorial meeting, and boy, sometimes it gets a little. But we all come together at the end of that meeting and say, okay, here's how we're going to do this. Now go out and
What's best
do
for the
this.
viewer.
What's
Sure.
best for the viewers.
I like that. I like that a lot. So
Can I follow up with a question?
Sure.
of course.
Do you think it's become infotainment?
On a network situation, yes. There's, and I've said this before on publicly as well, that those networks have 24 hours to fill.
Sure.
And we don't. And so they have to take whatever they get and put it on air.
But they keep running it over
and over again. And that's the part about filling the 24-hour thing. And we just have, I wish I could, in my head, 5 hours a day or 7 hours a day of news, and that's it, or 6 hours, something like that. We don't have to do that kind of thing. Now, do we take stories that we do in the 4, 5, and 6 and rerun them in the 10? Sure, because there are some times that we understand that people aren't home at 4, 5, and 6, and the only time they can see a newscast is the 10 o'clock. And so we try to do the headlines of the day.
Right.
But yeah, it's now become, we'll take anything anywhere on a network and try and put something on the air and try to make it viewer, for someone to the benefit of the viewer. And I look at some of these going, what is this?
Right.
What is this? Where did this come from? So
When did you start to see that happening?
I think with social media, the advent of social media, there was always that. Fox was conservative, MSNBC was liberal, and CNN was kind of down the middle.
Sure.
There's some that will think that CNN is kind of maybe heading toward the liberal side, and Fox has always stayed the same. It's really a lot now because you know, when you see a network, this always killed me. When you see a network playing a snippet or a soundbite from another network to make fun of them, there's your entertainment right there.
That's it.
And I never could understand that.
That's commercials. That's how you sell.
Exactly.
Kevin, I'm curious, as an educator, have you noticed a difference, let's say, I don't know, with your students as well when it comes to gathering pertinent information about, you know, national items? Are they glued to that phone, or have you seen any type of personality change overall with students as a result of
Since the
this?
death of the print culture,
Yeah.
we have seen that.
Okay.
We've seen people pick up sources and say, well, I did a bunch of research, and I had to explain to them, look, you know how long it took me to do a real paper or a doctoral dissertation? You know, that's research. 9 months out of your life,
Right.
that's research.
Not
Or-
9 minutes.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or this weekend I researched that. You didn't research.
Yeah.
So there is that.
How do you deal with that? I mean, how do you?
You headbutt them. No. No.
That's one option.
Do that
Okay.
anymore.
Yeah. Okay. I can see that.
No, you,
No,
of course not.
you try to show them, try to talk to them, and say it goes back to this whole idea that you were referring to earlier of the ethics behind it all. We have to have ethics.
Right. Or country fails.
Right.
You know, literally. I mean,
Yeah.
it's so.
Yeah.
And lately, you know, I don't know,
Integrity.
We're challenged.
It is.
There's
And
no
I
doubt.
think that's a lot that has to do with why we are successful is because we you know, we're not the biggest market in the country. You know, we're a kind of what I call a small to maybe a medium-sized market, small market. You just can't, you have to have that in order to survive. You have to have the ethics involved in each story. You have to be able to present that, like I say, on both, getting both sides, because you have to portray that integrity.
Right.
And if you don't, the first I spoke to a journalism class at U of A in Fayetteville. I said the first time you don't do that will be the last time that you don't do that, because no one will come back and watch or trust what you do every day.
And I think that is the key, because your viewers are either on this side of the aisle,
Oh,
or
sure.
they're on this side of the aisle, and you have to have. I mean, but the majority of us are here.
Oh, sure.
You know,
Yes.
so
yes.
so you have to have that trust for the majority of
Right,
us that
right.
that are here, as well as, you know, the people that are over here and over here.
Yeah.
So honesty, I think that's why 5 News has just, you know, been so successful for so many years. So changing gears slightly.
75 years.
Wow,
actually.
amazing. Gosh, I can remember John
John
Candler.
Candler.
Yeah.
Oh my God. We could go down that road if you want. Yeah.
Burritts and heck
He
yeah.
just passed away in
Did he really?
January.
Now that
and
is
he
sad
was my
news.
boss for 10 years. And
Okay.
I'm telling you, the greatest
guy ever, huh?
greatest ever.
Nice.
Yeah.
So, you know, just recently, you know, you moved to Northwest Arkansas.
Yes.
You know, and I've been putting some mileage on, you know, with my kids moving to Northwest Arkansas as well. So NWA has a different vibe than the River Valley.
Without a doubt.
So how would you verbally contrast Northwest Arkansas versus Fort Smith or the River Valley?
I've always said, and I get people tell me this a lot, that Fort Smith is a quiet big town. And because you've got one city, you've got Fort Smith, you've got surrounding, you've got Greenwood and, you know, and Hackett, Hartford, Van Buren, you know, for that matter, and Oklahoma, Salisaw, and Poto, and Roland, Mulder, all that. But Fort Smith Metro is one city. In Northwest, you have 4 major cities, and then because of the growth that you have up there, that all these smaller towns are becoming bigger cities now. And I marvel about this, and I've talked about this before. One guy did this.
Yeah.
One
Isn't
guy,
that amazing?
One guy did this in Northwest, and you know, it's Sam Walton. And after he wasn't a stickler as for suppliers and vendors living up there, but after he passed away, the management there and the upper brass of Walmart decided number of years ago that if you're going to be a vendor or a supplier to us, you have to have a physical presence. And man, did that bring in a bunch. Obviously, it brought
Look at
in,
it
you know,
now.
Springdale's almost 90,000, Fayetteville 60,000, Rogers is, I don't know, 40 or 50.
Wow.
At some point, they said by 2035, if I think I'm right, it'll be 1 million people just in the
that.
Northwest Arkansas. So, you know, living 37 years living in Fort Smith, you just grow accustomed to that laid back, friendly. Oh, it just, you know, you can drive down. Doesn't take you 5 minutes to get to the grocery store. It takes you 2 minutes to get to church where we lived. It, you know, and our kids walked to Northside. You know, and it was just so much more laid back, and everybody wasn't in such a darn hurry as they are. And luckily, where we live now in Tawnytown, I take a back road to get to work. It takes me about 9 minutes, so I don't have to go on 412 or 49 and get all that. But if I want to go to the grocery store, it takes me 25 minutes. Or if we want to go out to eat somewhere, it takes forever to get there. But it is. You know, it's a great place to live. If you know, there's people moving in, they say, 10 or 15 people a day move into somewhere in Northwest Arkansas. And the median age is in their 30s and 40s because it's the corporate types that come in and move in from out of state. And it does make it a very vibrant and very progressive, in a hurry, but there is a lot to do though, and that's the one thing that what Northwest Arkansas has been able to do is grow to where you get these new people coming in that there's something to do for them. Not that there's not anything in Fort Smith to do. Trust me, I've had that argument till I'm blue in the face.
Thank you.
Yes, and so it's just a different clientele for up there than it is in Fort Smith, and you know I like it living up there because we are in the middle of the population for River Valley and Northwest. But you just grow accustomed to living here, and we've lived up there now for about 5 years, and it's become normal. It's become routine again. But yeah, I'll always miss the vibe down in the River Valley.
Just yesterday, we were in Dallas. We had to attend one of my old partners. His wife passed away from cancer.
Oh my,
horrible deal. But driving in Dallas.
Yeah, good luck.
Well, I mean, I started to think, okay, I'm back in Northwest Arkansas.
Oh,
you know?
yeah.
I mean, so the traffic. I mean, you talk about takes 25 minutes to go, 5 miles, and it really does. So I see that definitely happening. You know, we're going to start calling that the Metroplex.
Oh yeah,
up there, the Northwest Arkansas Metroplex.
Yeah.
And because it is so big, but it's it is amazing. And if you had advice for the River Valley, because there's good up in Northwest Arkansas, and the traffic and the housing, I mean, are the challenges, but there does appear to be so many more things to do up in Northwest Arkansas. What advice would you give River Valley leaders about either marketing or bringing in?
Well, again, that goes back to the clientele. If there's no doubt that this town has always been a manufacturing town, and the city goes by how manufacturing goes as well. With the Whirlpool plant, I still call it the Whirlpool plant, although it's something else. Now I'll always call it that. But when they said that when that closed down, those couple of thousand jobs lost, it was going to be, that's the end of Fort Smith. Well, it wasn't. But at the same time, the job creation here will have to sort of mirror what is happening in Northwest. Now, that's not to say that there aren't good quality jobs in Fort Smith and the River Valley. In fact, there are a lot of people who, from what I understand, work at Walmart headquarters in Bentonville, living in Fort Smith, and they go back and forth every day because they like the atmosphere down here than they do living there and having to fight the traffic to get to and from work every day. But to be able to to match what's happening in Northwest, those type of jobs, those type of corporate jobs will have to somehow filter here somehow. And you know, with the new mission out at the 188th, that's a darn good start. To me, that is a darn good start, because now you're not creating manufacturing jobs. You're actually creating permanent jobs, because that mission out there is going to be there for a long time. And if anything, it's going to get bigger. And so you've got that. But you know, having some corporate, it would be way out there, but having some kind of a Amazon warehouse here or something, or just something more of a corporate nature to move here, to where you would get people in their 20s, 30s, and 40s. Not that that's not happening in the River Valley. It would just be, I think you would see an influx if that was the case.
And I wonder, with the F-35 mission out here, if there will be a General Dynamics,
a spinoff, absolutely. How many businesses were there when Whirlpool was here? I can think of Southern Steel. You know, there was all these different places that had to be feeders to the Whirlpool plant. So spinoff, absolutely.
Sure. You know, I also think that, you know, with the absence of Whirlpool, you know, there's always a vacuum, and I give UA Fort Smith some credit.
Oh my gosh,
UA Fort Smith has been is now becoming a staple.
Oh yeah.
You know, is what's kind of holding a lot of the kids here, you know, the students
they are
here.
With the Peak Innovation Center and the work that they've done together.
Yeah. And I think that was the forethought of Joel Stubblefield, God rest his soul. He and I got along so well, but he could see that sort of thing happening. And was UA Fort Smith not a lifesaver when a lot of these manufacturing businesses closed down? And I'm telling you, and I used to do a couple of stories with him and Paul Barron, that if you guys weren't here, think about where would we be right now?
That's right.
And so that's
a ghost town.
Yeah.
You know, I really believe that almost. So, hey, you know, also being the face of Channel 5, you know, I imagine you hear complaints about leaving Fort Smith, right?
Oh, well.
You know, all the time.
How's that going?
As well as complaints.
They've
on
just now
stories.
started to drop. No, I'm just kidding.
Right.
As well as receiving complaints about, let's say, stories that you've done. And you know, we know it's not your decision, but you have to face those complaints. I'm guessing,
you know,
am I right?
Well, yeah. You go to a restaurant or you go to a store, and someone said, "Why did you?" You know, it was a company decision. It was back then we were owned by Tribune, and they saw the expansion that was happening in Northwest, and let's find a center place, sort of kind of in a big city. So we're in Johnson, which is just outside of Springdale, between Fayetteville and Springdale.
Right.
Could we have sustained both places? We had been for 40 years. But the way corporate kind of works is we need to get everybody together. There was always that mission. Even though we were hugely successful with a studio at the mall in Fayetteville, and then of course the one down on 13th Street, but there was always this feeling, and a lot of corporations did this, a lot of TV companies did this, that we need to get everybody into one building. We need the synergy of having everybody into one building. And the decision was made and there was a lot of talk. There was a lot of thought. I mean, it was probably a 10-year process to come up with this. And so to locate it there, we're all in this 20,000 square foot building, and it serves exactly what we're supposed to do, and it helps us present ourselves in a way that everybody, I think, likes. And so now that's home. I get that all you do is Northwest. I said, well, you know what? We still have, and it's so funny because this is getting technical, but we have a rundown of all the stories that we do. We call it the rundown. And I'll print it out. And when I come down here, I used to give it to a person people who would always tell me, you do way much more. I said, look at all the stories we did in Fort Smith just yesterday. It's the perception, and I get it. We all understand. the first 2 stories are Northwest Arkansas, the next 5 are the River Valley, but all they see are the first 2 because then they're switching to something. I totally get it. Just stick through it, and you'll see how balanced we are. Just because we moved up there doesn't mean we're not covering things that we still come down here all the time. I come down here all the time. We still have reporters. We still have staff that comes down here all the time. So yeah, it's still there.
Certainly a loss for Fort Smith, but I could see the corporate decision was probably a wise decision. I mean, as you said, bringing the synergy together, bringing all these minds, all this talent under one roof. I mean, helps you to produce a better product.
It makes it a lot easier, let's put it that way. You know, back in my day, when in the 90s, remember a fax machine? Does anybody remember a fax machine?
Right.
We would have to fax scripts back and forth. That's how, before we got computers, we were on typewriters. Anybody remember what a typewriter is?
Yes.
We would have to fax all of our script. And so now when we went to computers, it was a lot easier because we were all connected. But you just couldn't see their face. And we're on the phone all the time. And then video chat came in, and that sometimes worked, and most of the time it didn't.
Right.
Yeah. The buffering
During COVID,
thing,
it was big time, wasn't it?
we had to do that. Yeah. But it has worked out very well, and there's still some, but not as many, we'll say. Yeah, I wish you guys were still here, kind of thing. So
we touched on this a little bit.
Well, we miss our neighbors too. I mean, that's the part of it. You connect with people so well.
Oh, sure, yeah.
And there was that element.
My pancake flipping partner
exactly.
moved off, I mean, we had some fun.
We still try to come down quite a bit, and at least do events, emceeing events, or being in parades, or
podcasts,
or doing this, just several different things that still bring, that I still like to come down, because I can reconnect with all the people that used to connect with all the time.
Cool. We talked a little bit about this, but you're probably the most recognizable face in this part of the state. There's no doubt. So how does DB from 5 News become DB, who is the husband, the father, the neighbor, the parishioner? What's the secret?
I think I said this a bit ago, but I learned at early thing. You when you step in that building, you're focused on making sure you're doing the best job that you can do. And when you leave that building, that's when you can start. I've got baseball practice with Jake, or I've got softball practice with Allison, or I've got to go to the grocery store before, or when was that men's club meeting? I've got to go to that too. And I don't forget, we've got the lawn social coming up. And so to me, that helps me. As soon as I step out of that building, I'm still there a little bit. And with the phones and texting a lot, you still get that at that. My wife will tell you that I spend way too much time on my laptop or on this at home. But it's still not in the building. And so I can always put this down, and I can go out and mow the grass.
Right.
And to me, I've always told my wife, I said, my lawn work is my stress relief. I don't care if it's 150 degrees outside.
You got a zero-turn ride and lumber, don't you?
I do not. Our yard is not big enough.
Okay.
We have neighbors that do, and I want to try it, but I'm too afraid I'd run into the house or something with it. But so yeah, it's I've learned to be able to distinguish between the two. It took a long time to figure that out, and it's what's hard for me now is I'm watching the young kids trying to do that, and bless them, they're trying to get out and do things together, and they don't have family here, so they try to go out and do things together, and I love that, because that increases the synergy that we have with our reporting staff.
But the news cycle never stops.
But the news cycle never stops. And so when something, bad happens, then we get called in, and we get, the day could start at 10 in the morning, or it could start at 1:30 in the afternoon. But I hope I have done a good enough job to be able to separate that and do things on my own, or with my wife, or with our grandson, or our kids, and so forth, and be able to, I coached baseball, I coached softball, I did all that kind of stuff, when they were younger. So you just have to split that, or man, you'll get burned out.
Yes,
and after 41 years, I hope I haven't gotten burned out just yet.
You know, in my old world, same thing. Over 41 years in
law
in
enforcement. And that I could
and,
not even imagine.
Yeah, that
I
was
could not even imagine.
it was definitely a ride, that's for sure. But you
Yeah.
know, that was the biggest challenge, was trying to separate work, because people.
Well, you get
some of
calls
our,
at 2 in the morning
oh,
about
yeah,
stuff.
You know,
and-
we used to have our pagers, back
Oh,
in the
my
day. Then
pagers,
you had to go to a
yes.
payphone to call, or
But you were called out a lot too.
Well, yeah,
As a
when,
reporter.
when there was breaking news or something, then when I was manager at the time, I'd have to go into work. When the
Sure.
tornado hit, I
Yeah.
went to work on Sunday and went home Thursday, and so it was that kind of thing. Sure, thankfully that doesn't happen very often. But when things do happen, when spot news happens, then we get. I don't get much called in because we have a staff now that can handle doing what they're. And then they'll say, "Hey, we need to have you come in anyway."
So how do you
I
train
love
people
that
for
kind of
that?
stuff. And you just throw them in there. I'll give you a perfect example. Obviously it's a tragic, the fake thing on the U of A campus from about a month or so ago.
Right.
I get this call. I said, we think there has been an active shooter on the UA Fayetteville campus. Oh man, you got to be kidding me! Not here. I've had those discussions before.
Right.
So I'm thinking, okay, so I'm hurrying, I'm getting to work, and every reporter that we had sent out, and we had sent out 5 reporters, had never done anything like this before. But when I got out on set and my co-anchor and I were talking about it, and we were trying to give as much information as we can from a producer in our ear, we got those little earpieces that we wear. All right, pitch it to Claire or Bo or Lauren or Joe or Jacob. And they had never done any of these things before. And so my heart's kind of going, okay, how are they going to handle this? You would have never known that they had never done this before. And that's their schooling. That's just their demeanor, as calm as they can be. They weren't out there flailing around and jumping up and down and, screaming and hollering. They were as calm as they could be in a situation that wasn't very calm at the time. And that's just part of who they are.
They stepped up to the plate when they needed.
Absolutely
Wow.
they did. Yeah.
It kind of reminds me of, and I can't remember her name. She was a reporter, and I'm glad I'm not mentioning her name, but her first call, I should say, or story, was a homicide that we worked up on the top of Sugarloaf Mountain, where you probably know who I'm talking about.
Trying to think.
It's on the tip of my tongue. But anyway, it was a horrible case where a mother was murdered, run over by the father, and left a baby out there by
I
themselves.
do remember that. Yeah.
So she got there, and at first she was white as a ghost, and she came up to me and I got to do this story. This is my first story ever.
Yeah.
And I said, well,
That's
we'll
how you-
both get through this, and we worked it out. And then when I went back to look at the story that she had done, and she did an amazing job.
Sure.
And,
yeah.
and again,
And there's
you
some
fall back on
coaching
your
involved.
training.
Yeah. When they get back, there's some coaching involved, but it's the instinct of the reporter that they're the eyes and ears of us when they go out, and they'll either tell us this is a really good story or this isn't. And then what the situation is when they do get out there, and I'll say, okay, here's how you kind of do this. Here's where we're going to suggest that maybe you get this kind of interview or ask these questions. But
So I want to know,
they're pretty known. They're
where
pretty good
is
at
the
that.
Daren Bobb blooper reel?
There was one.
Okay. Is there one?
And,
Does this
and
exist?
when we switched over from a system that we had in the 2010s to the system that we're on now, unfortunately, we lost a lot of video, and
Somehow
I was so
they
mad.
were lost.
There's a ton of video though that we needed at some point and couldn't get to it because it had been, and part of that was, and yeah, there was some good stuff. There was some good on air. I always like to. It's such, I get that. I don't watch because it's such bad news. Well, you know what? I kind of see my job then to maybe lighten it up just a little
Right,
bit, and maybe have we call it chat at the end of weather, where when Garrett Lewis was there, and now with the weather staff we have now,
Right.
I try to poke at him a little bit just to say something, and most times they respond, and it's hey, we get a good chuckle out of it, and then at the end of the newscast, I always have this thing that the very last commercial break is 2.5 minutes long, and we get cues in our ear, 2 minutes and a minute and a half. And
Right.
when it gets down to 15 seconds, I'll crack something really, I think it's funny. And then my co-anchor and the weather can hardly get through it. And I just sit there and just
Oh, that is
laugh.
good
and
times.
just
Good
watching
stuff.
him
Good
struggle
stuff.
to get through it.
But you know what? How I mean, to give you kudos about that, because you're right. Most of the news is not exactly about great stuff. And, and you watch it and you watch it, and then all of a sudden, okay, now here comes the tornado. Okay, then Arkansas Razorbacks lost. Then towards the end, you the little bantering back and forth.
To me, that's
brightens your moment
yes.
back up before you watch the national news, which is super depressing. So continue on, sir.
I will. Yes,
continue
I will
on.
continue to do. I don't make light of any stories. We just kind of have fun. Sometimes when a wacky story pops up,
Sure.
That's just human nature. And a viewer is at home going, well, he didn't say much. He didn't say anything about that. He probably could have said this. I'm going to say it just because it's just part of
Somebody has to.
I
think I've actually texted him once or twice in the middle of the
on
story.
air,
On air in the middle of a commercial break, trying to crack him up.
Oh, I love it too. I respond right back too.
Yeah, that's funny. Kevin, law enforcement and the media are kind of codependent on each other at times. And there's been, headbutting before, with new reporters and, new PIOs or law enforcement officers. But what advice would you give a law enforcement agency and or a new reporter when it comes to dealing with each other?
All right. Like I said before,
we've talked about this.
We
many
have to
times.
live here, and so we have to make sure that we're being fair to the law enforcement, the agency. I can tell you that when I first started here, like I said, we didn't have social media, we didn't have Facebook or any of that. We didn't have internet. So when we would hear about a story, we would have to go down to the department and find someone. Hey, tell me about this, and so we could. Nowadays, and I got this from a friend of mine, and I respect him. I don't know if I can say his name or not, but he was a former Fort Smith police captain. Hey, look, you guys are going to find out about this anyway. We need to get ahead of this. And it was about that time. That was probably 2009 or 10. It was about that time that all these social media pages and people would get on Facebook and Twitter, X now, and all these other places, and throw out, hey, I just drove by and there's 6 law enforcement officers at this person's house. I wonder what's going on. And that gets out now. Mm-hmm. Before, we would have never known about that, but now we get people who will text us and email us and call us and say, hey, check up on this. And before all the advent of social media and PIOs, that we would have to dig. And now we find out about things that are happening within a police department or a law enforcement agency about the same time they do, just based on the tips that we get. And so for a PIO for a law enforcement, don't pretend that we don't know, because we do know. Now, that's not to say that we're going to come down and attack you with this. I just want to know what's going on. Mm-hmm. I just want to know what happened here. Yeah. And that started for me, it started around here. It started with a different PIOs that had started with Fort Smith Police. I know you're always open when we called, when you were the sheriff, and if there was advice, like I got the advice from this one officer, that you don't need to hide anything because we're going to find out about it. Mm-hmm. In one way, shape, or form, we're going to find out about it. Now, when we send reporters out to these different situations where there is a PIO or there is something, don't be afraid to ask. But at the same time, you do have to respect where an investigation stands. It's hard to convince a reporter, why can't you tell me everything that's
Right.
going on? Well,
Right.
they can't do it. And I will tell you the I think you know where I'm going with this. The two things that really stood out to me on our respect for law enforcement, Officer Danny Martinez and Coop, and when they were shot and killed, especially when Coop died, I told our staff and our news director said, we do not need to be in their face. Trust me on this. We do not need to let them be the one to come to us. They're not going to hold back on anything because of the situation. They can tell us what they want to tell us. We don't need to be grilling them. The same thing with when Danny Martinez got shot and killed. It was the same thing. We did not want to invade the Fort Smith Police Department building. We stood outside. We kept our distance. When they were ready to say something, when you guys were ready to say something, you came out and talked to us. And so that, as a reporter, we try to tell them, you can ask the basic questions, but if you don't get the answer that you want, there's a reason why they can't tell you this just yet. They can give you basics, but if you start asking intricate, that's part of the investigation, and they'll tell you, we cannot comment on that and don't keep pressing. That's my way of doing things. Now, the younger kids, they may see different on that, but I try to at least tell them, hey, look, you're still going to get the story. Just do it the right way. And you'll develop that relationship with these PIOs and different officers that, when something does break, they're going to call you first. And I've seen that happen before too.
Yeah, that's pure wisdom. I mean, you're spot on, exactly. And I think that's worked well with the majority of the reporters with 5 News and other local agencies as well.
Right.
You might have 1 or 2 minutes to talk about a major story that's developing on air. But yet, we touched a little bit on this about the amount of effort and work that goes behind the scenes. But even the choice of words, I would imagine, to get this story out that is let's say a week-long event or 5-hour event, trying to get it all within 2 minutes. Who decides how these words are aired?
The reporter actually does a good job with getting that done because of their education and their experience. Now, we've had some reporters that will come back and they'll have this script about this long, and then our job is to obviously shrink it down. It's
kind of like editing a podcast.
There is a staff, yes,
kidding.
exactly. There is a staff that actually goes through and will do that that's what their job is okay, maybe this line or this soundbite or this isn't necessary. We can cut it out and it will still be a good story. The story is still factual. The story is still relevant, and it's still a viewer benefit. Let's just take out some of the wordiness in it. And so, someone right out of school will kind of be a little wordy, but as they get experience and as we kind of show them how to do this where it's not so wordy, then they pick up on it, and it's pretty easy after that. But sometimes it's a struggle. You get out there and you got 3 or 4 or 5 interviews, and you want to get them all in there, and you just
fight for a story.
You're
right?
Right, exactly. Okay. Yeah.
So there was a city directors meeting last
Tuesday night. Yes.
Yeah. And I think you all aired a story about it.
I
So
did.
Let's recap.
I
on
went
that for
back
just a second.
and of course now again this is the advent of social media. Everything is streamed now. The city director or city council meetings are streamed, or at least a big majority of them are. They put it up on the YouTube channel. So I went back. I'd heard that there was a discussion about the slides out at Parrot Island, and that the 5 slides that were purchased by the city of Fort Smith back last spring to be installed as an expansion project out at Parrot Island. Well, George Katsavitz, who's Ward 4, I think, is his ward. At the end of the meeting, they have a thing where each director can have a say as to anything they want to talk about. Well, he brings up, why haven't the slides been installed yet? Well, it turned out that out of the $4.2 million that was supposed to take care of buying the slides and installing them, there's only $650,000 left of that 4.2 million, and it came out in the meeting on Tuesday that's going to be at least $2.5 million to get them installed. Well, that set off a big old long discussion about what happened here. What happened? Why was this? Are you kidding me? And George Katsavas says he wants to sell them now to be done with this. Christina Katsavas was questioning why, what happened to this 4.2 million, and why has there been this huge discrepancy? And Jeff Dingman, is the acting city administrator, pretty much said, well, it was Carl Gefkin that negotiated this before he was terminated. So where it stands
on
now,
his lap.
so
Now.
it pretty much, yeah.
Goodness.
So where it stands now, it wasn't on the agenda, so there was no vote taken. The idea still is that they're still going to install these things somehow by next spring, but I get a feeling that that's going to come up again at another directors meeting.
Do you think?
Where there'll be an item on the agenda to either sell it or do something in order to pay for the installation. And the installation is the concrete pad, the pipe, the plumbing, the pumps,
It's not only tightening a few bolts here or there.
Exactly, yes. There is a list of 1,000 things you have to do, and buying the slides was number 3 on that list.
Right,
So it's just one of those. Now what happens next? Who knows? It'll have to be an issue where a director will have to get something on the agenda at some future voting meeting there'll be a study session first so they can talk about it first. And then the next Tuesday is when they usually, after a study session, is when they have a voting meeting, and that's when they'll who knows what they'll vote on. They may not even address this at all. Who knows?
So you said 2 point what?
At least $2.5 million. And there was one bid they got was for 3 point something million, and just to install this thing.
So, and going back to the list of number 3 being purchasing, I
But
mean,
yeah.
So you do wonder, how do you drop that ball
I don't know.
of
And
not following step 4, 5, 6, 7?
That's what
taking
Christina
all of
In
that
addition to the
Katsavas
sales
was.
tax
Yes.
issue they had with it, right?
Yeah.
Didn't they have the also charging people too much and all that?
Oh well,
Right,
that was
right.
on credit cards. Yeah,
That was
you weren't supposed to collect a certain tax on a credit card, and so now the Pearl Island's going to have to refund that. And I think they are or have done or in the process of. But that was exactly.
We already
what,
have water problems with the decree, right?
Yes.
So then we
Yes.
just add
that
more.
we're still, that we have to pay for, and that's going to
For
be
the
up
next
to,
800 million or thereabouts.
800
close,
years.
close to
Yeah.
$1 billion
Yeah.
basically, and I am curious that with that amount of money and that amount of work on that consent decree, and I've heard Mr. McCutcheon talk about this.
Sure.
Why are you not hiring an expert engineering firm to make sure that we utilize our money, your money, my money,
Yeah,
effectively,
right.
rather than having one city department who's going to, I don't know, put it together in a hodgepodge way or do the best
Yeah,
they can.
Yeah.
Why not spend that money to make sure that
And
it's
I
done
think that's
right?
what's been brought up a number of times,
Sure.
and why that hasn't been, I don't
Yeah,
know.
I don't
know there
get
are
it.
some
Yeah.
directors who want to go down that route,
Right.
and there are some who don't because they have confidence in the staff, and
Sure.
so we'll see how that turns out as well too. But
Yeah,
Very
and they
interesting.
make their decisions based on what their staff
Sure,
tells them.
exactly,
And I
yes.
certainly hope that either directors or staff members are not digging their heels in on this
Right.
idea just because somebody mentioned it and it wasn't
Yeah.
their idea. To me, I think that's a smart use of
Sure.
our funds.
Oh,
and
absolutely,
so forth.
yeah,
So
yeah.
the city of Fort Smith right now is under some big challenges. Big challenges.
So when are
To
you
say the
running for
least.
mayor?
Yeah, I was going to
That's
say,
now,
yeah.
I'm running for the border, looking for peace is what I'm running for right now. So.
Well, the thing now is finding a permanent city administrator.
Yeah,
and I
let's
don't
talk
know what
about
the
that.
process is on that just yet. I know that's been brought up a number of times at board meetings is what's happening with, and I saw, was it about a month ago that they actually posted the job for it. There was
Okay.
there was an ex post from the city of Fort Smith. We're hiring, and then down here it said city administrator. So they are looking. It's a nationwide search from what I gather. And I just hope it doesn't go the
Experience
way
with
of
water slides a plus.
yeah. I just hope it doesn't go the way of the auditor on how that went.
Oh,
so that's a whole
man.
nother
Yeah,
story.
that's a whole nother story to cover.
We'll see how that
City
goes.
Administrator Kevin Jones.
No.
Yeah.
No.
See, that
I'm
kind
out
of does
politics.
roll pretty well, doesn't it? Roll off pretty well.
It
doesn't
does.
Yeah.
Kevin Jones.
No.
And
no,
the other thing
Yeah.
that kind of goes along with that, there was this big hullabaloo on Facebook that George McGill's not going to run for re-election next year. Well, he said that in his last campaign.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to do 2 terms and I'll be done.
Mm-hmm.
His second term ends next summer. So again, that goes back to
Right. Why is that
someone
news?
putting it on
Yeah.
Facebook going, hey, he's not
Yeah.
running again.
Yeah.
What's going on?
Right.
He said
It's
that.
gotta be
He said that
nefarious.
4 years ago. So anyway, so yeah, it's that kind of
You
It's
know,
all about context.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's the city recently is providing so much ammunition for people like that on Facebook.
Sure.
to-
Absolutely. Yes.
You know, I don't know, being almost a lifelong resident here, it is time to kind of get it going.
Yeah.
And you know, being a city leader, county leader, sometimes you have to be humble and say, you know what, we made a mistake. People
Let's
just want to
fix
hear
it.
that.
Yeah.
You know, we're tired of this divisive,
Yeah.
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 outlook, and even at the national level, the majority of us are right here. We got this and we got this, and we got 2 parties right now that are, or people that are in a party that are working for parties and are no
And not
longer
for
working
people.
for us,
Yeah.
the people.
Yeah. And
So
that's
it's
I
so-
think I remember that kind of thing happening when I was in high school.
Oh, yeah.
And
Sure.
you
Yeah.
would think it would get better, and it just again to me, with the advent of social media and everything else, I think that
It's just
tells me
work.
that it's never going to get fixed. Or
So, and
part
that
will
was my
never get
next question.
fixed.
I was
Yeah.
going to, what's your gut instinct? Do you think we'll ever take a step back and become a little bit more
Oh,
pragmatic?
I hope so.
Rather than so
I hope
divisive.
so.
I mean,
It's just again, it goes to you got these 24 hours that starving for whatever soundbite they can get as fast as they can get it, and you have members of Congress that are right there to help him out with that.
Yeah,
And so it's hard to think that at some point there won't be that going on, but I hope at some point that would.
Oh, I do too. Lord have mercy.
Yeah.
And
So-
the best way to weed through that noise, in your opinion, is what?
Oh my,
As a
not
consumer,
paying
of it.
attention to it, but
Okay.
I don't know how you can't not pay attention to it because it's just in your face all the time.
Okay.
A lot of people, like I say, get on their phone and it's the first thing they do is they go looking for it. And so, how many times have we seen those efforts? Put your the driving thing now, put your phone
Yeah.
down or put your phone away or pay, but
Yeah.
that's a driving
Or in
distracted.
classrooms in high schools
Or in
across
classrooms,
America.
yes. Now now we're getting these phones that are being put away, the bell to bell thing where there's no
Right.
cell bell to bell.
Right.
And man, when we
That's
first
really
that very first
not
story we
effective,
did, very first story we did on that, we were getting bombarded with parents. What if I need to get hold of my child? Do you remember when you were in grade school?
you were okay.
We didn't have
Yeah.
No.
that
No.
sort of thing.
Kevin,
Did you have phones, Bill?
They
No,
can,
I'm just kidding.
Kevin, my suggestion is to get out of the noise.
Yeah.
Is to put this down, make a road trip to Colorado.
Yes.
Go trout fishing for about 12 days.
That's the thing.
And come back
man.
because that's exactly what I did. And
I'm telling you.
And one of my I didn't get on Facebook while I was gone. Didn't watch the news. I'd check in every
Bless
now and
your heart
then.
for
And,
that, yes.
and my gosh, it was
Oh, yeah.
it was heaven.
You're
Oh,
not
yeah.
helping his numbers.
No,
No,
no.
no.
You know what? I'm right there with him. I am right there with him. I will tell
I
you
still got the 5 news alert.
that when I'm
Oh,
off
okay,
or
okay.
I'm on vacation, I don't watch.
yeah.
I don't,
no.
even if I'm here, I don't watch anything. And I should here at least. But when I go up to Illinois for our parents' house,
Right.
Yeah.
don't watch a
It's
thing. I
nice,
watch
isn't it?
baseball or
Oh,
a
good
basketball
for you,
game or
good for you.
something. But anyway.
Hey, nationally, we see the Department of Defense right now. Pete Hegseth is asking all the reporters that cover the Pentagon and DOD to sign a piece of paper stating that before you release any information or speak to anybody, you have to have DOD approval.
Right, provision.
What are your thoughts?
You
about
know, that's
that.
There's,
I mean,
it kind of goes both ways. I get why he did that because you don't want reporters. It'd be like I go into a police department and
Get the
buzz
rookie
in
officer.
and go walking through there and just talk to anybody I want. The Pentagon is the hub, obviously, of everything military. At the same time, though, it is a First Amendment thing, and they do have, but you still have to follow, to me, and I know I'm old school, to me, you still have to follow the right protocols in order to do what your job is supposed to do. They all have bureaus inside the Pentagon. What I really didn't know that there were reporters just walking free will all around that place. I thought, well, ain't that a little dangerous? I mean, you walk into a meeting or something, or you're walking. So, I can see where that could be, that would have to be at least policed a little bit.
Sure.
But at the same time, it is a free speech thing or First Amendment thing that you do have the right to be able to do what you're supposed to do. But there still are some guys. I mean, when I say that, it's not, we still have to follow guidelines when we're putting a story on the air. We can't obviously say certain words. We can't put certain video on. We can't put stuff on because we're regulated by the FCC.
Right.
There should be some regulation there. Maybe not to the extent that he's going after, but there still needs to be some kind of regulation there that man, it just walking free will through that place just seems kind of interesting.
And again, is that truly the case? Is that just the version that we're getting?
Well, that's true.
I don't
Who
know.
knows? Yeah.
But on the business necessity, as sheriff, I wouldn't want the media have free access
to the jail or anything else.
They had a certain. I mean, they were always buzzed in when asked to come in and so forth. But I would prefer they would not go to the most rookie deputy to ask about strategic budgeting and so forth. So I certainly understand.
I get
business
that, yes.
aspect,
business part of that.
But
yes.
To sign an agreement,
sign something that's
and it's amazing that
very
most all major networks said,
backed out. Yeah,
no,
we'll see.
That's not how we do it, including Fox.
Yeah, we'll see you. Yeah.
So, but somehow I got a feeling they'll still get the scoop.
Oh
on
yeah, they'll
certain
still do
things,
stuff there. Yeah, absolutely.
Franklin County Prison.
Oh my. There's so much that that you'd have to unpack on something like that. But I think the strangest thing to me on that whole thing was there was no plan to have it there. The next day there was a plan to have it there, and there again, this is just what we got from, rest his soul, Gary Stubblefield and Senator King and some other people there, that they were blindsided by this. And I'm thinking, well, was there not? Surely there had to be some kind of discussion with somebody in Franklin County at the very beginning of this to let them know that this was happening. And this is from what we've uncovered, that there was not that. And so that's, to me, that was the strangest thing. And what's interesting and has made this story interesting is the fallout from that, and then the reaction from everybody in Franklin County organizing together successfully. And there may be some strange bedfellows with some of these folks organized against this and fighting it tooth and nail. That to me is what is driving the story for us, is the effort that has come together in order to keep this from happening. There's nobody that's saying that we don't need jail space. Of all people sitting in here, there needs to be jail space. But let's plan this out with everybody who is affected by it being involved with it.
And you know what that's called?
We just did not see that. And with what we're hearing from the interviews that we do with people who live there, that just was not the case.
Doing it that way, that's just called good leadership.
Sure it is.
And that's what surprises me about this whole thing. Because, I agree. I know the prison population and the backups in the county jails with state prisoners.
Yes.
So it is definitely needed. and there are counties that are asking for it.
Right.
You know,
Yes.
but
And
to
that's
come
the other
in,
thing that
you know,
surprises
and,
me
and
too.
flexing, muscle and without any conversation and buy-in and what appears to be proper planning. I mean,
Yeah.
there's no water, there's no utilities,
It's all
there's no
it's a
infrastructure.
solid bedrock, and you'd
Yes,
have to
so
spend it's a $1 billion project at the least, is what we get
Yeah.
told a lot.
I
But
would like to see better from our state.
Yeah,
You know, so
yeah,
that's a tough deal. So recently there was a homicide at Devil's Den.
the double,
Big-
yeah,
yeah,
that turned out to
provide-
be very interesting and
Challenges
national,
for
very
you as well.
challenges. Well, not only for us, and the first people I think of obviously are the families involved, but then you have the law enforcement aspect of that, and having to deal with us, in a situation like this. I know they understand that we have to be there, but at the same time, where that took place, there was very
cell.
little cell phone. If we've all camped there, there's very little cell phone, connection.
Right.
And so they're doing their best to contact and talk to each other, let alone having to talk to us about this stuff. Now, the one thing that they were very good at was letting us know that, yeah, the person is still on the run. And so that was what we had. To me, that was our job first, reporting what happened and then letting people know this dude is still out there running around. And they did do a good job at that. Now, as far as the details about what happened, we knew we weren't going to get that at the very beginning, and just like any other, investigation and situation. But it was enough for us to go on that two people were stabbed to death, walking simply on a walking trail, and the dude was still out running around somewhere, and that was enough for us to let people, because we saw, at least I did, I saw it as our job at that point to let the public know, here's what happened, here's how bad it was. This dude's still out. You all need to be vigilant.
Right.
And then once we started getting details about what happened and who this guy is, and what he was wearing, and the I'll never forget when they first sent us that composite drawing. We put that up there, and I'm telling you, it went gangbusters. And then you look up, and it's on the national network. I'm thinking, wow, this is
big news.
Turned out to be something. I think just because of the nature of it. These two people were with their two kids. They were taking a hike on a trail, and some guy decides he's going to do this, and allegedly do this, I need to say. But and so that we saw that as our job then. And so, but like I say, as the details came along, that's when it became this, oh my gosh, this is really an amazingly bad situation.
Horrific.
Did we ever find out the motive?
He hasn't. He's never said.
No.
And that remains that. Well, that if there's a trial, and who knows if there will be. I mean, he's charged with capital murder, so I'm assuming he's going to have to be a trial, unless he just pleads to what is the lesser first degree
charge.
murder? Yeah, but it could come out in a trial at that point.
That's my biggest question most of the time is why?
Why?
Why
exactly.
do they do this?
Yeah.
It's just from the small knowledge I have of cases similar to that, it's a gratification thing, It's an internal challenge, a sickness that they build up to over in their mind over and over, and the act itself is gratifying. But then later on, when they think about it, and this guy obviously was probably a organized offender, meaning he brought his tools with him,
right,
which tells us that he thought about this and it was premeditated. But my heart and my sympathy goes out to the families for sure. My sources with the state police and Washington County Sheriff's Office and all the other agencies involved, they did an outstanding and amazing job at identifying this individual and
then catching him not long after.
Absolutely. So kudos goes to the Arkansas State Police special agents and all the investigators with the Sheriff's Office, Parks, Rangers, as well as everybody else up there,
right? Yeah,
because they all pitched in. It was an amazing job. So.
That brings up a point of what's the most difficult story that you had to report on personally?
Oh my! I think the deaths of the officers. When I first started, the truck accident in downtown Van Buren.
Right.
That was about
Nine people.
It was 9 people. Yeah, there were seven in a station wagon, and then the 2 in the 18-wheeler that came down Logtown Hill.
Right.
You know, I'm a year into this career, and I'm at the top of Rogers Avenue. Used to be a gas station right there, where the dentist office is, right there at Rogers and 540. We'd get our gas there in our news vehicles at that time. And I'm sitting there getting gas, and it's about 7 o'clock at night, and I'm looking out toward Van Buren. There's this huge plume of smoke. So I radioed. We had radios at that time.
Wow.
Radioed into the state. I said, I think I need to go to Van Buren, get over there. And that was a difficult. That was it was difficult in the nature. Well, in the sense that we didn't really know. All I saw was the back of an 18-wheeler sticking out of a business, and you knew there was at least somebody in there. But then we had no idea until several hours later that that the truck had jumped the railroad tracks and then landed on top of a station wagon and pushed it into the stores there. And that was difficult. That was hard for me to. That was one of those where when I left and I went back to my apartment, I'm thinking, I couldn't sleep at night because of the Nate, and then you go back the next day when Gary Robertson, I'll never forget, police chief at that time, and he would call news conferences just to give us updates. And this was what, 85, 86 when this happened. And just to have to go back there and it was a scene for a long time, because it took a long time to get the fire put out, number one, and then get everything dragged out of that place. And that's when it kind of hit that, man, there was kids involved with this, and just, and then if there's always something positive come out. They put the sign up there at the top of Logtown Hill, barring trucks from coming down Logtown Hill.
Well, I guess in closing, and I've never said this before, about Bill Cooper incident, the space that you all did give us, and the reporting that you did on that was amazing, and I so appreciated that, because my head was spinning. My whole department was mourning. I was mourning.
And the last thing that you needed was for us to be all up in your grill, and there was just no way we were gonna. I remember seeing you down. Was it the next day, or it was a fundraiser down there? I call it the Firehouse Pavilion. Yeah. And I didn't even want to say. I've known Bill for how many years? I didn't even want to say anything other than, hey, look, thinking about you, that kind of thing. And I just remember turning around and walking away, and then you were like bombarded with all these people. I'm thinking, oh, okay, let's give him some space here. And so that was the one thing that I was for me. I was proud of what we did, was to not be in the way.
And again, I so appreciated that. Our public had so much outpouring of love, and I had I think it was 17 or 18 different events that I was invited to go to.
Right? Yeah.
Fundraisers, or dinners, or and of course they all at the end asked me to step up and talk about Bill Cooper and so forth. So and that was just exhausting.
Oh yeah.
But the love that they showed was amazing. But again, giving us the space at that time was greatly appreciated.
Yeah,
so thank you very, very much. So, all right.
This has been fun.
Man,
we need to do this again sometime.
Absolutely.
You betcha, man.
Thanks for coming.
Been a long time since Bill and I go way back.
We've got faces for radio, so this works.
That's right.
There you go.
It's so much
he's
fun.
on TV and everything.
That's exactly right.
I still get told, you got a face for radio. 19 years of doing this.
Hurtful. Hey, thanks so much. Hey, if you'd like this content, please make sure that you like this page, as well as subscribe to Bill Hollenbeck's Behind the Badge. So from the Sound Collection Lab here at the University of Arkansas at Fort Smith, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
I'm going to be off
I love it. That was awesome.
That was fun
We could go forever.
Hey, could we not? I'm serious, man. Could we not?
Thank you for your time.
I'm going to turn this off. Yeah, your time is